stakeholder engagement was key. I got to meet people face to face, knock on their doors. They had my email. They could walk into our office, ask us questions. Some of them could be upset. Some could be complimentary about works that finished in front of their house, and thank you very much because you finished on time. And we had also pop-ups, community pop-ups. So we set up a table with all brochures, all the information, and people could come to us and we would just talk to them and give them all the information. And I had to know all the milestones. Yeah, my role was really engaging with the community in a way that there was no hesitation for them to contact us by phone, by email, in person. We were there. What can you give the community, the person, the organization you're approaching needs, and maybe you can serve them? So your curiosity also goes to finding out more about other stakeholders to understand how you can be of benefit. You don't want to just knock on the door and say, hey, I want to do this, help me out. But what's the benefit for them? And then that'll be a better engagement, easy perhaps to persuade.
Welcome to the GovComms podcast, bringing you the latest insights and innovations from experts and thought leaders around the globe in government communication. Now, here is your host, David Pembroke.
Hello everyone and welcome to GovComms, a podcast about communication in government and the public sector. My name is David Pembroke. Thanks for joining me. Today, a guest with flair. Andrea Garcia is the Senior Program Officer for International Engagement at the Australian Public Service Commission, but she has spent a lifetime working in marketing and communication. Andrea grew up in Bogota, Colombia, and she is a native Spanish speaker and salsa dancer. She called New York City home for many years, where she graduated from the City University of New York with a Bachelor of Arts in Psychology from Baruch College. She has 2 Masters of Arts degrees, both from Hunter College, one in communications and the other in theatre. She has been in Canberra now for a number of years, working, among other places, for the Canberra Light Rail, the Museum of Australian Democracy, and also she has worked for the Canberra Institute of Technology. But she joins us in the studio. Andrea, welcome to GovComms.
Thank you, David. Thank you for having me.
How did you find your way to Canberra?
Canberra is the best kept secret in the world. I fell in love with the city.
Did you?
Yes.
What brought you here, though, originally?
My partner.
Oh, okay.
Yes,
Right.
It was love.
Okay. A Canberran?
No, he's actually from Victoria.
Okay.
But lived here in Canberra, and I've never heard of Canberra, really. And when I came, I just fell in love with the city.
Okay. And Bogota to New York, how did that journey take place?
That was personal. My parents got divorced. My mother moved to New York.
Yep.
And eventually I joined her. Mm-hmm.
Okay. And your study path, career path as a child, what were your interests?
It was journalism.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. It was acting, theatre, the arts. So I wanted to combine those two, but I love journalism. I loved writing.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And did you work for student newspapers or at university newspapers or anything like that? Or did you ever work in journalism?
In university, I did my master's in communication. So first I went into psychology, but very interested in human behavior, I think. But there was a big connection. Also, when I moved to New York City, I didn't speak English. So to master the language, I needed perhaps studying more years. So I completed my bachelor's degree. And then that's where I went for my master's in communications. And yes, during my master's, I wrote for the magazine, the newspaper. I was an editor of the entertainment section of the university newspaper. Yeah, you're taking me back memory lane.
What was that like, trying to learn a new language as you were obviously a bit older and you were starting down your education, but you were doing it in a foreign language? Or did you have some sort of base in English?
I left Colombia when I graduated high school.
Okay.
And it's basic English what you learn there. But I was very good reading the language.
Okay.
Not so much as speaking it.
Yep.
So, and I wanted to, be perfect, because I was the one hosting events in high school. I was at the front and center of all the performances. And of course, when you go into another language and the community doesn't speak the same language that you do, is frightening. But eventually, I think I ended up my first year translating all the notebooks and all the notes and all the articles that I had to study for my classes. I did, yes,
the whole
and
process.
I was regimented. I was incredibly regimented. Yeah.
And what about listening and hearing? Because often the written word is not the same as the way people speak.
Yeah.
So how difficult was that to try to pick up?
I always liked American music.
No, okay.
So I used to translate or get the lyrics in English. So I felt that I had an educated ear.
Yep.
I could understand. But then the pronunciation was challenging, and I wanted to sound good and I wanted to be understood. So even though I felt that I could speak and I could write, I probably didn't venture and open up just for fear of making a mistake. It took a while. It took me a while to get that confidence.
But once you then graduated, you achieved your qualifications,
Yep.
and great qualifications, really extensive qualifications. What was the journey then? Was it towards journalism, or was it to theatre, or was it to marketing? Or explain to us how that worked.
I went into public relations. I think I had to experience the life of working for clients and developing campaigns and work for clients. I didn't really go for news. Perhaps in university I did work experience. It's known as work experience here, perhaps, but it's more internships in America.
Yep.
So I did internships with Children's Television Workshop, which is the parent company of Sesame Street.
Yep.
I did an internship with a television station in the news section. Then I did the same news station. I did an internship in public relations, and I really liked that. I really liked, because I was able to develop the content, develop the media releases, pitch to the media, and that's how I built my resume, basically, because I was still in university. And then I went to work for
Weber Shandwick.
Weber Shandwick.
Yeah.
Yes.
Big agency. Major agency.
Huge, global.
Big.
Yes,
yeah.
yes. Before Weber Shandwick, I was with UNICEF.
UNICEF, yeah.
The United Nations Children's Fund, but actually I was with the U.S. Fund for UNICEF, which is the fundraising arm in the U.S. for UNICEF.
Okay. How many years did you spend with them?
About 4 or 5 years.
Okay.
Yeah.
And when you got to Weber Shandwick, what sort of clients were you working with there?
Oh, my goodness. Fortune 500 brands,
Yep.
big names, big budgets, where there was really, the sky was the limit. You could engage celebrities, launch products, have night events for the media. Yeah, amazing. Sponsoring the Latin Grammys, the Latin Billboard Awards. Yeah.
When you look back on that time, what did you learn?
I think UNICEF the U.S. Fund for UNICEF was really foundational for me. I worked with incredibly passionate, creative people. There was at that time, and it was always been, the need in the world to help other countries with less resources. And cost-related marketing was very strong at the time. So having the opportunity to engage with industries that were willing to sell a product and donate a portion of the proceeds to UNICEF so we could help programs in Latin America or Africa, worldwide, other parts, it was amazing. So it was that connection. So when I go to Weber Shandwick, which is a private public relations firm, and we are working with consumer brands, where the objective is, the bottom line is really to sell the product. The more you sell, the more market share that brand is going to have. The impact was different. That didn't resonate with me. It was fun. It was interesting. I met a lot of celebrities, high-profile events. But the cause, I needed that connection to the greater good, to the impact, to do something for the community.
Which is effectively, the community of this particular podcast, the people who work in government.
That's
and
right.
the public sector and work in communications. So it's important that they have that mission.
That's right.
About the work that they do, just as you do now in your public service job. Why is that so important to people to do a good job? Why is it that it's so important that people do have a passion and a purpose?
And that was exactly my journey, because I ended up working for the New York State court system in public affairs.
Ah.
Yeah, and that is...
So you did your time in the big agency and thought to yourself, little bit empty here. I don't really care if XYZ market share goes up 2 points. I'm much more interested in trying to find someone or something to help.
It was a good job. I was reliable, committed to it, but then my heart was not in it.
Yeah.
And then when I found the opportunity with the court system, it was that impact again. Raising awareness, making the community aware of services the court system provided for them. There were 2 campaigns that we launched. One was to recruit court interpreters, and the other one was to recruit court officers. And it may not seem that important, but it is, because if you go to court and you don't speak English, you speak Russian, or you speak Tagalog, or you speak French, you need someone to communicate, to help you communicate your case and, whatever it is that your situation is. We saw instances where parents they were not sending their kids to school to bring them to court to interpret for them. So we really needed to increase the roster of interpreters, and the campaign that we launched statewide really accomplished that. So it was huge. But we needed to be a little bit more creative, because we didn't have the budget that I was used to in the private sector.
So take us through that campaign. How did you think about it? It was clear what the objective was to identify suitably qualified people who had the language skills. But to be an interpreter, it's more than just knowing the language, isn't it? So how did you go about identifying, encouraging and getting the numbers of people that you needed to do that particular job? Yeah,
you're right. It's more than just knowing and speaking the language. It's about having that personality to communicate with the person and having the time, and perhaps even having another job, because it wasn't full time. It's not that you're going to have people speaking in other languages every day. There's not the cases every day. So we had to think exactly out of the box. It's going to be people perhaps coming for a second career, perhaps people who are retired, perhaps is mothers who stay at home and maybe send their kids to school and have the availability to go and interpret at court. Perhaps is university students who also have time available on a free time basis or on a freelancing basis. We had to go to universities, then shape the campaign. Also, we had to do the campaign in language, and New York is a melting pot of cultures. So finding those pocket areas throughout the state, like the Russian community, the Indian community, and all the dialects and the languages that they speak, and find those newspapers of either community television or the radio stations, and ask them to help us get the message out.
Was this research driven, or was this driven by you following your nose and having a thesis and moving towards the thesis and proving it one way or the other?
Totally me.
Yeah.
Yes,
yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Because the budgets probably weren't there. You just had to solve the problem and then
that's right.
work through the logic to actually find and ask enough questions and be curious enough to get yourself to
and get to know the communities and where they are throughout the state and what we can do with them.
How important is curiosity to be a good communicator?
Absolutely. It's essential. The more you know, the more you know about if you're working for a client or you're working on behalf of an entity, the more you know about what's their pain point, what they want to accomplish, and how. And that's how is that game in your mind, or at least it happens to me, like I start building synergies. What's happening, the events that happen, how is the community behaving, all those things, and then I start joining the dots, and that's another way to build partnerships, because that helps you get an understanding of the environment and you can really amplify your message. So I learned in the court system that, yeah, money is necessary, money is important, but you also have you have to go at the grassroots level and build those connections and make things happen creatively, and that's the best way.
What advice do you have to people about that particular skill, or acquiring that particular skill, or deploying that particular skill, which is to be engaging with people such that you can build confidence and trust that they will share with you relevant information that is useful for you to achieve your objective?
Yeah, I think I will have to go back to what I learned at UNICEF, and at the time when we were building partnerships, cost-related marketing partnerships, the word mutually beneficial, the term mutually beneficial was always there. So don't think about it in a selfish way. It's not so much what you want to get out of. What can you give? What the community, the person, the organization you're approaching needs, and maybe you can serve them. So your curiosity also goes to finding out more about other stakeholders to understand how you can be of benefit. You don't want to just knock on the door and say, hey, I want to do this, help me out. But what's the benefit for them? And then there'll be a better engagement, easy perhaps to persuade.
But it's like any sort of relationship, isn't it? If you go in and start asking at the kickoff of any relationship, asking people of any sort, you're really not going to get there. So it is about investing time, investing effort, keeping your ears open and your heart open such that you will, build that trust and that confidence where people will be prepared to give you the insights that you need, because you'll find it, won't you? And after a while, I find sometimes it just comes and it's like, there it is. That's what I was looking for. I didn't know when I started, but once, over a period of time, you actually get there if you sort of listen with empathy and listen with respect, that, the insights will come. And
I will say be persistent, because you're not going to get a yes at the first go, even if you're prepared and and you understand everything. But at some point, you're going to get that first yes, and that's going to go flawlessly. And that's how you build your credibility, when you knock someone else's door and you have a case study. Yeah. And you can show the results that you achieved, and then there'll be more of an incentive also to work with you.
That point of persistence, that point of patience, how do you learn that? How do you learn to be patient? When it's like, I need this now, I need a result, everyone's coming at me.
Especially nowadays with technology, that you get everything instantly. The wait time has kind of disappeared.
Have you noticed the change?
Run on your clock.
Have you noticed it? Yeah, you have.
Absolutely. Yeah. Social media gave us all that instant Google. We just want everything, want it now, and we get it right now. Yeah. But there are things that you have to wait, and you have to have more formal communication. For instance, if going to my current job in international relations, you have to be more formal. You have to send perhaps a letter requesting, inviting, whatever it is that you're proposing, and then take some time. You'll get the reply. There are protocols that need to be followed. So,
but that goes to the critical point of context, doesn't it? Because asking a cause-related partner in New York City on behalf of UNICEF to help you is going to be very different to government communication. So how do you think about context, and how do you learn about context so to make sure that your communication programs and campaigns are appropriate and effective?
And ethical.
And ethical.
I always go back to the perception of impropriety.
Oh.
And this was a concept from the New York courts.
Okay.
So at any point in time, we had to think that anyone, and this came from the fact that I wanted to engage celebrities. There are many New York shows, New York police shows and investigator shows. And how amazing it will be to have them, speak about one of our campaigns.
Yeah.
But it was like, at any point in time, anyone, celebrities included, no one is exempt from being before the courts. And we have to be careful that There is no perception that they may be getting the favor of the courts or they're taking unfair advantage. Like, we can't. So I always go back to that. That informs my projects whenever I'm working on projects or campaigns. What I'm doing. Who am I asking? Is this the right person to ask? Is that the right industry? With the light rail, we were involved. It was kind of like a private-public partnership. It was funded by government, run by private construction companies. But we had to be really meeting the standards, meeting the policies, meeting the contracts, and making sure that, in a way we were representing the government. The community doesn't see the difference between ACT government and John Holland or the other. Yeah. So we had to be very clear and very transparent.
Yeah. Now, just for the audience benefit, Andrea is referring to the light rail system that has been built here in Canberra, Australia. Been a wonderful success, really, in terms of the way it's been able to open up the northern part of the city and to activate, a large part of the entrance to the city as well. How did you go about communicating, selling the benefits of light rail to people in those early days when it was expensive, it was going to be disruptive, it was going to be all these sorts of things? None of them actually turned out to be the case, really. It was quite flawless in the way that it was being implemented. But how did you think about that as a major infrastructure project being deployed?
And it's great to hear that it was flawless. There was all the drama happens behind the scenes, but for the community and for everyone, it was it's an amazing project.
But that's a point, I think, isn't it, really, also about expectations and management of expectations, because whenever something is unknown, it's easy to attach all sorts of bits and pieces to it, like, it's going to be a disaster. It's going to make sure that we can never get through to the city. It's going to be traffic jams. And when it's not there and you can't really unpick those things. But then when it actually happened, it was a bit like, that was a bit of it didn't happen. But anyway, I interrupt.
And it's been embraced.
But infrastructure projects, what was what did you learn there?
Interestingly, in America, I had never heard of community engagement or community consultation, not in the sphere where I worked, government, nonprofit, private sector.
Not UNICEF?
There was not. No, I don't think we did. We were fundraisers.
Right.
So that's what we did.
You're too busy chasing celebrities.
we needed money. We needed money to fund the programs. So community consultation was like, please help us. Please donate. These are the causes. Yeah. So when I come to work here at the Canberra construction of the stage 1 of light rail, that is really a big part of the project. And my role was communications officer, but stakeholder engagement was key. I got to meet people face to face, knock on their doors. They had my mobile number. They had my email. They could walk into our office, ask us questions. Some of them could be upset. Some could be complimentary about works that finished in front of their house, and thank you very much because you finished on time. And we had also pop-ups, community pop-ups. So we set up a table with all brochures, all the information, and people could come to us, and we would just talk to them and give them all the information. And I had to know all the milestones. So when we're going to be where. Yeah, my role was really engaging with the community in a way that there was no hesitation for them to contact us by phone, by email, in person. We were there.
That's a great insight, because we've recently finished a project for a client, and part of the strategy was to answer every question and to stay as long as the last person who had a question to answer, to the point where there were no questions left. And so it was exhausted. Like every question that anyone could possibly ask, and it was like, we'll stay here until you're finished. So as that we want to give you the information because it's important. We want to respect you, and we want to respect everyone to have the questions. And it had an incredibly powerful effect on the audience because there was an authenticity to it. There was a genuineness to it. Did you find that?
And that's patience.
But there we go.
Yeah.
There we go. But to your point, how important was it that you answered every question? And that I like that idea of that you handed over your card. Now, did it ring a lot, or did it probably never? It wouldn't have rung too much, I imagine. But just people that the gift of you giving them access to you probably calmed them down and realised, well, okay, if I have a real problem, I'll ring. But just that gesture, powerful.
We were really proactive.
Yep.
The manager we worked with leading our team, incredibly knowledgeable about consultation and community engagement. And before we knew the work plan, or once we knew the work plan, we had maps. And we said, this is the perimeter, we have to go. And we went there. Yes.
Yep. Everywhere
along the construction alignment, which is where now the light rail is running, and they tell people no. So we were not waiting for people to complain or for people to say, oh, we didn't know about this. We were out there communicating. Yes, we had a website, we had social media. Not everyone is on social media. Not everyone has a mobile phone because we also send text messages. So that being proactive, and then the pop-ups are going to be on your community at this time, on this day. Come, meet the team, answer questions. And it was on us to be informed. It was on us to get that information from the construction team in layman's terms, because, engineers can speak and we had to really bring it to the terms that I could understand so that I could explain it to them.
Yeah. How important is it that you communicate through multiple channels, offline channels, online channels, that you do have that comprehensive mix of channels? How important is that?
Well, that is integrated marketing communications campaigns require that. And based on your budget, you can allocate more resources or less. You can produce a video, have it on your website, have a YouTube channel, put it on your social media platforms, create a text message list, and then you can send text messages again as well. So having a mix to reach as many audiences, because not every audience is going to be on the channels that you are. If you select one or two, just only social media, you're going to leave some people out. And then again, not everyone has the same account. So you have to know your audience or try to understand demographics to see where you are. Because even print media, it's important. People buy newspapers still. That's why they're still in circulation. So people read those articles. You need to be there.
So you move from there into the Museum of Australian Democracy, which, again, for our international guests, it's the Museum of Australian Democracy, and it's housed in Old Parliament House, the original Parliament House in Canberra. We have a much bigger version, which houses the National Parliament at the moment, but there is a smaller version, but there is a dedicated museum to Australian democracy. What took you there?
A heritage landmark.
Yeah. What took you there? Why did you go there?
Interesting question.
You don't know. Probably saw the job and thought, okay, that looks interesting.
I have a strong connection to the arts.
Okay.
I really feel I'm an actor, a trained actor. I study theater. So I feel all art forms, just the museum is just like to walk in there for work every day was a dream. And the prospect of to promote those exhibitions, to help get the word out about the work that they do was just amazing.
Why do people visit museums?
I think they nurture our creativity, our imagination. In the case of Old Parliament House, Museum of Australian Democracy, to learn about our history, the journey that our politics and the decisions politicians have taken us where we are today. And there's modern flair. So I think museums are greatly appreciated by my generation, and we have to pass that to younger generations. So there are exhibitions for children where they can go and they play, but they also learn. So there's an educational component.
How do you balance those two things about, information transfer that people, can get it, but then it's the connection, the emotional piece is what people remember, isn't it? How an exhibition made them feel is much more important than probably, the assembly of facts or whatever it is that they've taken away.
Yeah, that's engagement, isn't it? And a lot of people remember their first visit to the museum when they were taken on a school trip, which is so beautiful. And then I couldn't tell you how many times I heard that. And
that's interesting you say that, because in Australia, and this again for the benefit of the audience overseas, year 5, I think it is, year 5 or 6 in primary school, the government pays for your school to come to Canberra. And you go and visit all of the various sites, whether it's the War Memorial, whether it's the Parliament, Old Parliament House, the National Gallery. You're taken to all of these different places. It's a part of the civics education. So it's interesting, as you say, that people return and they never forget it. I can still tell you exactly where I went, when I went, the politician I met in Old Parliament House, the other places that we went to. It's
That's
that
beautiful.
sense of, it was really eye-opening, heartwarming. I have a very, very strong memory about it. But it is important, isn't it, to create
It is.
that sense of specialness that you can draw upon.
And it's a building that has a story in and of itself,
Yes.
because it was built for purpose. It was built to host the Parliament. So in every room, a story took place. A decision was made. It's amazing. People should come and visit.
Yeah, indeed. So listen, as we wrap up, just sort of looking back on your career, I love the fact that you've got such wonderful diversity and you've taken clearly a number of risks at different times to sort of, okay, I'm not going to go on that particular path. I'm going to sort of exhaust that challenge and really there's not too much more I can learn here. I'm going to go somewhere else. What advice do you have for people as they're sort of thinking about their careers in marketing and communications? What's some of first of all, the technical advice that you might be able to give them about things they've got to be good at, but then maybe a bit of career advice as to where you would encourage them?
I have been fortunate to really produce videos, work behind social media, work on content, website content. So don't be afraid, try it. Our industry changed very rapidly with technology, with the social media platforms. And very quickly we had to get on board what's happening, and they change. They are updated regularly. So be curious, like we said before, absolutely. Take the challenge. Go for it. Get your feet wet and
step forward.
Absolutely. And more often than not, you'll be surrounded by someone who have a wealth of experience. Listen to them and show them you're willing to learn and willing to do. So if you roll your sleeves up, go for it, they'll support you. They'll support you even more and they give you more opportunity. And, now internships probably are a thing of the past because, I don't know if they're a thing of the past. They still do it. And some of them are paid nowadays. Yeah. So I will say go for it. It's a great way to build your CV. If you're in uni and you have the time to go and work for, if it's government or a PR agency, bring those skills, develop those skills early on, and then get your feet wet.
And in terms then, so the skills around being dexterous and obviously being able to manage content, create content, distribute content, particularly in the modern sort of technology-driven world that we live in. Oh, actually, before I move on, what about artificial intelligence? Mm-hmm. What about ChatGPT and DALL-E and all the other?
Yeah.
What is it?
Absolutely
frightening?
No, I was at
encouraging?
first. I think at first I was like, oh my God, and then I started to try it. But I will say, let's not become lazy. Let's use it to, I don't know. Sometimes the blank page is intimidating.
Yeah.
As a starting point.
Yep.
As ideas. If you don't have anyone to brainstorm, fantastic. You get all that in there, get your juices flowing, but then develop your own ideas, develop your own content.
Yeah. it's often pretty flat, I find.
Yes.
You know, it spits something out and it thinks, eh.
Yeah.
And I think people have an ear for the way people write.
Yes.
And so if you present in a particular way and then you maybe just serve up a bit of ChatGPT.
We'll know.
Immediately. You know, the language isn't right, you know, the tone's not right, the pace isn't right.
That's right.
And I do think, you know, I got this great advice years ago when I was a journalist that there were 6 things that I needed to learn. That so 6 important things. It was read, and then write. And I took that to heart. And I found that, and I think it's good advice, you know, continually, that you really do have to apply those skills. And again, I think, you know, the artificial intelligence, you know, the chat GPTs and all these other tools is what they are, and they can be very useful.
That's right.
I
learned also that
they can short circuit a lot of stuff, but yeah, I wouldn't be putting them too far to the front of the queue anyway.
No. I just learned that it goes only to a certain date.
Yeah.
And then the content is...
Yeah, I think they're solving a lot of these problems pretty quickly. Like I haven't actually seen the demonstrations, but apparently ChatGPT might have even been last weekend launched this text to video capability, and it's not open to the public, but it's, you know, they write down a letter, you know, watch a monkey play a piano, write it on a page, and then it'll create the video for you.
It's moving very fast.
It's moving fast. And again, it mightn't be perfect now, but I'm sure in some laboratory somewhere that they've fixed that problem and moving on to the next things. But it's interesting how we have this conversation, and so much of the conversation is really about interaction with people. Because ultimately that sits at the core of effective insight, connection, understanding of context, living of context, that helps you to generate those human connections, which are ultimately what sit at the heart of effective marketing and communications. And a final question, just from a public sector point of view, you're committed to staying in the public sector and continuing, like the work that you're doing now, obviously, in international engagement must be exciting. That must be a thrill.
If the work is challenging, why not? Yes, the work is challenging, makes me feel alive and creative. Yes. Yeah. I have nothing against the public service. I've been there for a long time, and I think the service that it provides to the community is important, is necessary, is valuable. We need government.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, we need government. And we need good government communicators. We need people who are very, very good storytellers to explain policy, program, services, regulation, you know, at a time when trust is challenged and will continue to be challenged, when we look at misinformation, when we look at disinformation. Frightening, you know, particularly as we have so many elections coming up around the world this year, and some of the margins that these elections are decided by, you know, who knows? There could be a piece of content somewhere into the future that does actually decide something that it should never have done. So anyway, lots to talk about. But Andrea, thank you so much for coming in, to spending a bit of time with us at GovComms. And thanks to you, the audience, for coming back once again. Really appreciate you being able to spend a bit of time with us and to listen to someone like Andrea, who has such a unique and interesting career and so much wonderful advice for all of us, actually, in the stories that she told us today. So again, thank you very much. And thanks to you. I look forward to you coming back in 2 weeks' time when we have our next episode. But if you do have time for a rating or a review on your favourite podcast catcher, that helps the program to be found. We are now in our 9th year of GovComms, and we will continue. But please, a rating or review does help us to be found. So if you've got time to do that, I'd be very grateful. I know Andrea would be very grateful as well. So anyway, thanks for coming. We'll be back in 2 weeks. But for the moment, my name is David Pembroke, and it's bye for now.
You've been listening to the GovComms podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to rate and subscribe to stay up to date with our latest episodes.